Good day, everyone. My name is John Brooks. I am a wildlife biologist and climate advocate. I used to work for the federal government as a wildlife refuge manager, a wildlife inspector, a criminal investigator, computer forensic specialist, and augmented United States Air Marshal. Upon my retirement, I started an organization known as the Nepal Tiger Project, which is a presence-absence study in the remote foothills of the Himalayan mountains. Later, I co-founded an organization that we call ClimateCon, which is an organization that brings climate advocates and people in the environmental industry together with those in the tech field to come up with real-world solutions on the climate crisis. As governments seem incapable of coming up with a solution in a timely fashion, I believe it's up to us to act. So where do we begin? Let's start at the beginning of the hominids. So as far as we know, Homo erectus was the first of the human species to not only stand up, but use simple tools, control fire, and venture outside Africa to places elsewhere on the globe. This led to other species development, such as Heidelbergensis, the Davidians, Neanderthals, and of course us Homo sapiens. And the interesting fact is that wherever Homo sapiens showed up, other species started to disappear. We are by far the most advanced of the human species, and we're the last. We've taken over. Now there's genetic material from other species found in us through interbreeding, but our species is the only one left. We have continued a spiral to change our environment, which is one of the things that made us more adaptable than the other species. We not only went in and created tools, art, controlled fire, we were able to change the conditions of our environment. We're still doing that with the release of carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere because of the things we create. Now, early on, at the beginning of the industrial and agricultural revolutions, we probably were not aware of the extent of how we're changing our environment. But probably around the 1800s, we knew, but yet we continued to do it for progress and for capital. But now we're at a crucial time in the development of humans that we are about to change it, go over a threshold that changes it, that's going to make it nearly impossible for humans to continue to survive on this planet. The evidence is clear. Every 6 months for the past 3 years, we've had extreme weather in the Arctic, which has led to the melting of the permafrost, increase of methane production, and the melting of the ice. We've had the hottest years on records over the past 3 years, and 2022 is probably going to add to that. Methane gas, like I said, is being released in the atmosphere at a rate greater than expected. We reached a threshold in how much CO2 we've placed in the atmosphere in 2020 at 416 parts per million. And as we all know, there's been an increase of infectious diseases. So let's talk about that for a minute with the COVID-19, SARS-2 virus. We have been able to come up with a vaccine in record time. Imagine what we could do if we were to work with the global warming crisis with that same vigor. The difference is the coronavirus is something we can see as tangible to us. We can see that people are affected, that people die, or we know someone who has gotten sick or passed away because of this, or we know someone who knows someone where this has affected them. We can see the numbers. You can probably tell me someone who has been affected by COVID-19, but you can't tell me someone who's passed away because of climate change. And that's the difference. It seems that we're hardwired to react to immediate threats to our environment, immediate and imminent danger. You can see that with a virus such as this one, but you can't see that with climate change. This is not outside my window. I can look outside and I can see nature still flourishing, the weather still taking its cycle, but I don't see gray skies and tree stumps and cracked ground. and therefore my body doesn't register it as a threat. And that's the biggest problem. It is a threat, it is imminent, but we can't see it. And by the time that we can see it, to where we have massive deaths because of it, it's going to be too late. We won't be able to do anything about it. Many reports out there, and this UN report in 2020 is just one of many that talks about how the climate crisis is probably the greatest danger to world peace, and the fact that it's going to create climate refugees. And that basically means people in areas that are going to be affected by, let's say, flooding or drought or the lack of food production will have to migrate somewhere else, because migration is a natural occurrence of all species. If you're not able to provide food or shelter, water, food, shelter for yourself, you're going to go somewhere else where you can find those things because you want to survive. Many of the Pacific Islands are at danger right now of going underwater because the sea levels are rising. Those people will be displaced. They will not be able to stay there. They have to go somewhere else. People in sub-Saharan Africa, when their crops fail and they can't feed themselves, they will go somewhere else. The question is that somewhere else a place where people will accept them? Eventually, we're all going to have to go somewhere else. But we're going to slowly see that change over time. Coincidentally, in Australia, one of the coastal cities there just reached 50 degrees Celsius. This is a coastal town. Now, that ties a record for an inland town in the 1960s in Australia, but never ever on the coast. And for those of you in the West, that's 123 degrees Fahrenheit. That is pretty darn hot. That will end up being the norm. And then we're going to have to adjust to that environment. And if you can't cool yourself down, you're like your car radiator overheating. But there won't be any way to expel the heat coming off your body, especially if the temperature, the ambient temperature outside is matching that of your body. Your body can't throw the heat off. So I don't want to tell you what's going to happen, but I think you can guess. So we can easily point our finger at many things, right? But there's no point in doing that. I can tell you that the richest 10% produce 50% of the carbon that we place into the atmosphere that's human created, and that only 10% is from the poorest of the poor of the planet. So you can point at the poor people and say, oh, well, they're not trying to do anything, they're not changing their lifestyle. Neither are the rich, and they're creating more. They're doing more than their fair share to put carbon. But then you say, there's the rest of us. We're in the 40%. We're also contributing too. We're not guilt-free of all this. We all have a part to play. And the question is, what are you willing to do to change the scenario, to change the outcome that is being predicted and it's probably going to occur? Are you willing to give up certain things to make corrections that your ancestors put into place? Because yeah, all this is not our fault, but we are still contributing to it because we live in a society. I'm all for artificial intelligence giving a helping hand. In fact, ClimateCon talks about this, using AI to assist us, to help us with things to make human life easier, but not in a way that you're doing less work, but in a way that you're working more efficiently for the community and the environment. There's statistics that show that 80% of the jobs now done by people are going to be taken over by artificial intelligence within the next 10 years. And that's fine if you're creating the AI to assist humanity as opposed to make profit. Because if the motive is to make profit, you have to ask yourself what's going to happen to all those people who are going to lose their jobs. It's not like past industrial revolutions where people could be retrained to do different jobs. This is not the case in the age of computers. So what's going to happen to those people that aren't going to have a job? Will they be under the poverty level? And what are we going to do about that? It's just like perpetual motion. We create one thing, but we're not thinking about the totality of the circumstances and how it all plays out. So when you think about that, so we're always doing the next level thinking. I mean, that's how we got from the cart, the wheel in the cart, and we're pulling it to carry our stuff, to then say, oh, let's just let a horse do it or an oxen do it. We'll domesticate them and they can pull our stuff. And then, okay, we create electricity. Let's get rid of the horse and oxen and let electrify our people movers and our machines and things like that to make life easier again, without taking into consideration the unintended consequences of our actions. So maybe we need to step back and say, okay, electrification is a great thing, but maybe we shouldn't create our electricity out of coal and oil. Maybe we should concentrate more on hydroelectric or some other way to create electricity and that's not so harmful to the environment. And maybe instead of putting asphalt down, we can put down something that is not so absorbent of the heat, causing the surface temperature of that city I live in to increase 5-10 degrees above what it should be. Maybe we should plant trees and shrubbery and just create a new environment. You know, think differently on how we're going to do things. And maybe just slowing down is the answer. Maybe we don't have to keep going up, 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 up to make life easier. Maybe we've already passed the threshold where easy is, and maybe we need to go back to that. So it's documented that humans work better in small social groups. I'm not suggesting we go back to tribal life, but I am suggesting that in the cities we live in now, we need to scale down what we're doing. We should focus more on the community that you live in, buy local, shop local, do local, as opposed to getting in your car, driving to Walmart or some other place to pick up something that you can get in your community. Now, here's the problem. So let's say I'm going to get a package of toilet paper, and that package at Walmart, which is 20 miles away, costs $2.50. And at the store down the street, which is a 5-minute walk, it costs $5. Now, if I add up everything, the cost of me getting in my car, going to Walmart and back, it's probably going to even out. I would have saved time and money if I would have just walked down the street and got the toilet paper there. But we're not hardwired that way. Always want to make a deal, get the best deal possible on the same way. So we drive to Walmart. Now, what if we change the rules of the situation and say, let's provide the local shop down the street with a subsidy that allows us to get the same price there. And then I think subconsciously, oh yeah, I'm just going to walk down the street. I don't have to get in the car. Then we start thinking, okay, yeah, it's more advantageous for me to just walk down the street and go get the toilet paper as opposed to going to Walmart. This is not a far-fetched idea, because think about it, we subsidize the oil and gas industry as right now. If it wasn't for that, you would not be able to buy gas at the price that you do, gas for your car, gasoline, and enjoy the benefits of driving. And the average American drives, I think, 26 to 40 miles a day, where the average trip is like a mile or less. So all that is contributing to placing carbon into the atmosphere, digging up more fossil fuels for us to burn, and delaying what we need to do as far as getting off fossil fuels and moving toward a different type of economy. So on a global level, you have to look at places like the Amazon forest. It's been called the lungs of the earth, right? And for a good reason. That's where a majority of the oxygen is created that you and I both live off of, that every species on this planet pretty much does. If there was anything nations would fight over going to war, it would be this, in my mind, as opposed to oil or precious metals or things of that nature. This is worth fighting for, because we will not be able to grow another Amazon forest. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's over. And you will see a rapid increase of extreme weather patterns because that Amazon forest is not there. Now, I'm not saying we go in and we invade Brazil and Colombia and tell them not to cut down their forests, but I'm saying as the world, as people of this planet, perhaps we should kick in and say, hey guys, we're going to contribute to your your nation's economy so you don't cut this down. Because right now they're cutting it for palm plantations, agricultural purposes, and that's not helping at all, right? But it's for economic reasons, and I get that. So it's up to us to like say, hey, we got your back on this one. Don't burn it. And then you also look at places like the Arctic or the Antarctic, which has been called the air conditioner of the planet Earth for good reason, because all that snow that was there, the sun is reflected back up into the atmosphere, but now that it's not there, it's being absorbed, right? And so that's increasing the surface temperatures of the planet. The thing is, climate change is happening at a rate 2 to 4 times faster in the Amazon or in the Arctic and Antarctica than it is for the rest of us down here. So things are really accelerated up there. The funny thing is, this is a side note, we've made a lot of discoveries because of the melted ice. We found many species from the Pleistocene period that we were able to study, that the hair is intact, the internal organs are still there. And we've learned a lot about life on planet Earth because of that, but it's still doesn't outweigh what the devastating effects, the deleterious effects of allowing that ice to melt. It'll come back, but not in our lifetime. So yeah, that's a thing. So I mentioned the methane gas because the permafrost is melting and the ground is heating up. Microorganisms are activated and they're eating all the biomass there, which is creating the byproduct of methane, and that's going back up to the atmosphere. So, and I'm sure you've heard this before, it's a more potent greenhouse gas than carbon. Then I can show you a photo like this from 1912 when there was a glacier, and then 2005, it's barely a glacier. But again, there's no connection to you because 1, you don't live there, 2, you weren't there in 1911, and 3, the 2005 picture, like, okay, that's a pretty picture, and I don't see anything wrong with that. You can compare and contrast, but then you have to understand, why is the loss of that ice important to our survival? So I can show you one from 1889, right? That glacier is gone and then replaced by a very pretty scenic picture. And so if you didn't grow up with that glacier, if you didn't understand the importance of it, it doesn't really mean anything to you, but it's important. So all this can be very overwhelming. You say, John, what can I do? I'm not a biologist. I don't have political ties. I'm just one person. How am I going to make a difference? I would say Joan of Arc was one person. Mahatma Gandhi was one person. Martin Luther King Jr. was one person. They inspired others to act. And you may not have the ability to inspire others to act, but you can act on your own. And collectively as a community, get together and make a difference. So now your oneness is multiplied by 15 or 50 in your little community. Like I said, walking, buying local, shopping local, doing everything local will make a big difference. But the biggest difference each and every one of us can make, which most of us won't like, is stop eating these guys. Changing from a meat-based diet to a plant-based diet will totally slow this down and buy us some time to hopefully get out of this mess. Now, the thing is, and people have said this to me, oh, I can't give up meat. I like it so much. I do work better. All these, I'm going to call them excuses, because unless you've got some facts to back up why you're telling me you can't stop eating meat, then it's just an excuse. So I challenge you to ask yourself 3 questions. 1, what is it I like about meat? Is it the taste? Is it the texture? What is it that's so delicious about this that I can't stop eating it? And you're gonna have to do some soul searching on yourself and looking back in the past and say, okay, how often do I eat it? What is it about I really like? So is it the taste? If it's the taste, I would suggest that you don't put any of those plant-based seasonings that you use to make it taste better on it, and just eat it by itself and see if you like the taste. You may, but then again, you might discover that it's all those plants on there that you really like that makes it taste good. Then you say, well, maybe it's the texture. because you're raised with this, it's familiar to you, you like that texture, and eating a salad is just not cutting it for you, then I would say, again, do an experiment. Don't compare a beef steak to a salad. There is no comparison. The texture will never, ever match up. But there are a lot of plants out there that you haven't tried or discovered that the texture may be as good or better. Or maybe it's just a matter, if you stop eating this, the texture is not that important to you, and then the texture of these other things are. Brings you joy and pleasure as you eat. But you won't know unless you try. Because of the climate crisis, many people, but not enough, many people have switched from a meat-based diet to a plant-based diet. And because of that, people who create food are interested in making new things now. And so there's a whole new world of food out there that you haven't tried, that you might want to give a shot. And then ask yourself if you can give up meat or not. It's a choice. I would also advocate for growing your own food. Food does not come from the supermarket. It comes from the ground. Maybe you should try planting some food, supplement your diet, something nice, wholesome and healthy. This gentleman, Ron Finley, started that in South Central Los Angeles. He saw areas, public areas, where used to be grass or whatever, and now there's nothing because it's not being maintained. He started growing gardens there and got the community involved. The city said, you can't do that. He goes, why? And he said, because you can't do it. And he goes, but why? And finally, they relented and let him do it, but they weren't going to do it because it was like, we don't do this. You can't grow food in the city. You got to go to the supermarket. He's educated a whole new generation on how that information was lost from their family lineage because they moved to cities, but he educated a whole new generation on how to grow your own food and appreciate that growth. We did the same thing here in San Diego. A friend of mine saw a vacant lot and he found out who owned it, and he said, hey, do you mind if we start a garden there until you sell it? And she says, yeah, go for it. So he did. He brought the community together, brought in some experts in the field of agriculture, and we started planting herbs and food, and it's been going 2 years now, and people are just into it, from as you see this young man here to people in their 80s. So again, working locally. There's techniques other than chemicals that you also can use if you get into this to help your food grow better and more efficiently, better yields, and that's biochar. You need to look into that. And this goes back thousands of years, but we know now that biochar is also a carbon sequestering element, where it takes carbon out of the atmosphere and stores it in the ground where it should be instead of in the air. So it's twofold. In addition to making your food grow better, faster, more nutritious, it also stores carbon. But here's the thing. When I look at the Generation Z people and the X's, and they're protesting in the street because they're mad at what we've done, and I can totally sympathize with them on that because we did do it, and the people before my generation did it. But if they were to ask me, I would say, you know what? We did it, but we're not going to fix it. There's nothing compelling us to fix this for you. We messed up and we're sorry. But guess what? If you want to fix, you're going to have to fix it. That's just the way it is. And protesting, yeah, that's one thing, but you're protesting the people who messed the system up for you. And as I just said, there's no incentive for them to fix it. They'll tell you they're going to fix it, and slowly things will change, but it's not going to be fast enough. So if you are in this COVID depression and this climate depression mentality, I would say get off the bench and get in the game. Send me in, coach, and I will gladly send you in. It's not enough to protest, because again, like I said, you're protesting to the people who mess things up for you and expecting them to fix it, and they're not going to. You have to decide as a group of people, not just a person, because one person cannot go into the political system as an example and make a difference, but a group of you going together. There's power in numbers, right? And then you could ask us who messed it up, who want to help you fix it, to have your back, help you navigate through the system that you're not aware of, because it's foreign to you, but it's not foreign to us. We can help you work more efficiently in that system, but you have to get in the system. So what, you're 20, what law says you can't run for city council or United States Congress or something like that? And you should, because if you want to change the rules of the game, you have to get inside the walls in order to break them down. You cannot do it from the outside. Greta is not the first person to, start the whole school protesting the strike and bringing attention to the climate, but she became famous for it, and that's great. And she's got a movement. She's, again, Mahatma Gandhi type, or Joan of Arc type, or Martin Luther King type. People are following her, but again, she's not in the system. She's still on the outside, and she recognizes that nothing's being done, and she's challenging, and she's calling them out on that. But again, you're just calling me out. There's no consequence for you calling me out. It's like, okay, I'm sorry, we'll do better. We'll set the goals for 2050 to be carbon neutral, et cetera. It's too late. And she recognized that, but she's not in the system. You have to get in the system. So I encourage you, if you want to get involved, if you really want to make a change for yourself and your family in the future, get in the game. I'm willing to help you, and I can contact you with people in your area that also want to help. But it's not going to change unless you participate. We cannot point fingers any longer. We have to get off the bench and get in the game. Are you in? Thank you very much.